Hello, good day. Okay, so I thought in this video I would talk a little bit about manipulating surds. I've got a bunch of problems in front of me, and I'm just going to work through them one by one. The two rules to remember when you're manipulating surds is that root A B equals root A times root B. Okay, that's our first rule. Let's multiply, okay? And then the second rule is that if you have a over b and all of that is under the square root sign, this could be written as root a over root b. Okay, those are two basic rules that we need to memorize and remember. So the first problem we're given, and if you want, pause the video and work through these as practice. We're just given something quite simple, square root of 28. So for me, I like to create a factor tree, and most of the time you can do it one's head. I'm just gonna write it. I'm gonna write it all out, just so you can see the steps, in case anyone's not familiar. So 28 we know is 4 times 7, right? And 4 is a perfect square, which is 2 and 2, and we can't factor 7 any further. But we can factor out a 2, so we know that this is going to simplify to 2 root 7. Okay. Number 2. I have here root 72, square root of 72. Well, we know that, it's getting a little bit messy, isn't it? That's okay, I'll write it right here. We know that 72, we know that 9 times, whoops, like that a little bit. 9 times 8 is 72. We can factor this 9, it's a perfect square, so that's 3 and 3. And then this 8 we can factor as a 2 and a 4 and then a 2 and a 2. Okay, so we can factor out a 2 and a 3. So 3 times 2 root 2, right? Because we're left with this 2. And then that's of course just 6 root 2. Okay, and so we've simplified that as much as we can. In the next question, we're asked to simplify root 90. So again, we're just going to create a factor tree. 9 times 10 is 90. 9 of course is a perfect square, right? 3 times 3. So we can factor out a 3. What can we do with this 10? It's a 2 and a 5. There's really nothing that we can do with this 10, so we're just going to leave it as 3 root 10. Okay? We've simplified that as much as we can. The next question, question 4, which will write up here to save space, is asking us to simplify square root of 12 over 2. Okay, so again, we'll just create a factor tree just to show all the steps. We know that 12 is 2 times 6. And we know that 6 is 2 times 3. So we can factor out a 2. So in the numerator, it's going to be 2 root 3, and then it's going to be over 2. And then we can simplify this still yet further. If 2 divided by 2 is 1, right? That's 1. So this just simplifies to root 3. We don't have to write the 1 in front, okay? It's implicit there. So yeah, that just simplifies to square root of 3. In the next, well, this one looks fun actually. Number 5. We are asked to simplify square root of 20 plus square root of 80. Okay, so 20 we know is 2 and 10, and then with 10 we know is 2 and 5. So we can factor out 2 here. So we can rewrite this first term, square root of 20, as 2 root 5, right? So we're left with a 5 plus, and then again we'll just create another factor tree. 80 we know is just 8 times 10, and then we know that 8 we can factor, it's 2 and 4, which is then a perfect square, 2 and 2. So we can factor out a 2, and as for the 10, it's 2 and 5. So we can factor out 2 2's here, and we're left with a 5. So it's going to be 2 times 2 root 5. Okay? And then we can simplify this, of course, because that's 2 times 2 is 4. But now we can factor out root 5, square root 5, like so, which is going to leave us with 2 plus 6, or sorry, I got ahead of myself. It's 2 plus 4, which will then equal 6, right? And so this all simplifies to 6 root 5. I get a bit lazy, I just call it a root, but I'm sure you can follow along. Next one looks really cool. Number 6. We're asked to simplify square root of 200 plus square root of 18 minus square root of 72. Okay, so again, we're just going to create some factor trees here. So we'll start with the first term, is 200. We can say is 4 and 50. And we know that 4 is a perfect square, which is 2 and 2. So we can factor out a 2. So that's good progress. And we know 50, which is say 5 and 10. And then we know that 10 is just 2 times 5. So we can factor out a 5. So for this first term, it simplifies to 2 times 5 root 2. Did I do that right? Yeah. 2 times 5 root 2. Plus, and then we've got an 18. Well, we know 18 is just 2 times 9, and we know that 9 is a perfect square. So we can factor out a 3, and we're left with 2 under the square root symbol. So it will be 3 root 2, okay? And as for the 72, we know that this is 9 times 8. And we know that 9 is a perfect square, 3 and 3. So we can factor out a 3. We know that 8 is 2 and 4, and we know that 4 is a perfect square. Whoops. Which is 2. So we can factor out a 2 and a 3, and we're left with a 2. So it's going to be minus 3 times 2 root 2. And you can maybe already see where this is going, because we're going to be able to factor out the root 2 as well, okay? But let's simplify this. 2 times 5 is 10. So that's going to simplify to 10 root 2 plus 3 root 2, and then 3 times 2 is 6. It's going to be minus 6 root 2. Okay, now we can factor out square root of 2. Okay, and then we're left with 10 plus 3 minus 6. 10 plus 3 is 13, minus 6 is 7. Okay, so all of this equals 7. So we're left with 7 root 2. We can't simplify this anymore. Okay, that's our answer. I have time for one more. Let's do this one. This one looks fun actually. Create a bit of more space. Go down a little bit further. Okay, this is question 7. We're asked to simplify the square root of 12 plus 3 root 48 principal root plus root 75. Is that right? Yeah, root 12 plus... Yep, okay, so we're going to start with 12. This is going to be a fun one actually. So 2 times 6, right? And we know that 6, we can factor down to 2 times 3. So we can factor out a 2. So the first term is going to be 2 root 3. Okay, plus, now we have our 3 here, and that's gonna be multiplied by, we're gonna multiply that by, and then we've got a factor, is 48. This 48 can be 4 and 12, and we know 4 is a perfect square, because it's 2 times 2, so we're going to be able to factor out a 2. As for this 12, that's 4 and 3, and we can factor out, I mean this again is a perfect square, right, so we can factor out another 2. So it's going to be 2 times, so it's going to be 3 times 2 times 2 root 3, principal root. Okay, excuse me, and plus 75. 75 is 5 and 15. We can't factor anything here. It's 5. Certainly 15 is 3 and 5, which means then got our pair, we can factor out that 5. So this is going to be plus 5 root 3. And perhaps you can already anticipate our final answer, because this is all going to simplify. 3 times 2 is 6, times 2 is 12, right? But we can factor out root 3. And so what we're left with here is 2 plus 12 plus 5. And 2 plus 12 is 14, plus 5 is 19. So all of that, that equals 19. And then so all of this stuff here is simplifies to 19 root 3. And we're done.